Hi guys, how you doing? Welcome to section 3 of the interrogation interview of Mr. Rick Allen done by Mr. Jerry Holeman. This is my analysis of said video. I will be providing timestamps of when I particularly notice things, and I'll be giving my own thoughts and opinions. The reason why I'm doing this in a four-parter is because I've been very busy over the last 2 weeks trying to work on other projects. Now, first and foremost, to all new subscribers, welcome. If you're new to this, I would very strongly suggest that you go and watch the video on said interview as done by Court TV on YouTube, and you can then come to your own conclusions or opinions. So, without any further ado, let's jump into it. Last time I left you, it was at 35:52, where Holeman appears to be insinuating something towards Mr. Allen. Now, as a former investigatory officer, you don't make insinuations of any kind. It's really simply bad practice. At 36.12, Holeman says, I'm laying down some of the reasons that I believe that you did this. With evidence. I'm laying down some of the evidence, which pretty much, it appeared to me that he had very little in the way of evidence to present to Mr. Allen. To me, that is again bad practice. You have to have a lot more evidence than that in order to conclude said interview or interrogation. Now, this evidence that he was presenting was to do with the ballistic side of things, the round found at the site of the murder, as compared to Mr. Allen's personal firearm, which is a Sig Sauer P226, 40 caliber. That can fit any number of weapons, by the way, just to let you know. At 37.33, when Holeman has just left the room, Rick Allen literally mouths, "What the fuck?" To me, he's getting a little bit agitated, and this is just pure disbelief as to what he's being presented with. I don't blame the guy. In all honesty, I'd be agitated too. I'd be pretty knocked off by that time. Okay? At 41:12, Mr. Holeman says that Kathy can't believe that you lied to her all these years, and you're also lying to us. That's a pretty severe accusation to make, Mr. Holeman. Pretty severe. Okay? In fact, for all I know, you could be making that up to try and obtain further information from Mr. Allen. You can't throw things around like that. It's not the best idea. Alright? At 42.45, Holeman again insinuates about Rick's depression and says that it would be a whole lot worse based upon the murders, over the last 5.5 years, that your depression had gotten worse. To say something like that, you don't do it. Okay? You really do not mention your suspects or POI's medical history in such a manner. Simply because of the fact that it could lead said person to become more anxious, more depressed, and thinking, well, do you know what? Screw it. At 42.58, Holeman puts forward a theory of how this actually occurred, why the round was at the murder site. As a investigative officer, theorizing is pretty much a dicey business. You've got to be sure on certain things, okay? You cannot present such things without 100% evidence or proof, okay? Excuse me. Darn pager. Sorry. Rick at 47.58. By this time, Rick denies full tilt about the round and the weapon. He can't understand for the life of him how that round could be placed with his gun. That's a pretty fair enough assessment to me. That is non-deceptive. He wasn't lying. Mr. Holeman then turns around and says, at 48.26, so you can't explain about the round, you can't explain about anything at all. At which point Rick says, no, I can't explain anything. Hands held like that. It's a non-deceptive gesture. At 52.00, Holeman is apparently going to ring the prosecutor. This is a similar tactical ploy to try and scare Mr. Allen into revealing certain things, or to try and trick him into saying certain things. You don't do it. It's really a bad idea because it'll only increase a person's anxiety or depression or any other mental health issue. You don't do that. Rick's response to this is, no, you're making up your own version of the truth. That's a fair enough assessment. You know, but for all Rick knows, Holeman could go out to someone like, say, Kathy, or indeed any other fellow police officer, and say something completely different. This is why I've explained in my previous video that it's so important for a police or investigative officer to write things down. It protects both the officer and the suspect at hand, to be utilised in a court of law. At 56.11, they start to have a bit of a debate as to the actual legitimacy of the evidence presented and the fact that Rick Allen cannot clearly understand how that round got to that murder site. That's a fair enough assessment. Again, he's not lying. He's not being deceptive at all here. At 58.57, Holeman coughs a third time, which I find a little bit disturbing, seeing as the fact that he was leaning very much forward to Rick at this point. If you've got a cold or anything like that, and bearing in mind that this video, the actual interrogation video, was actually done shortly after COVID, yeah, you should not be within that certain proximity of your suspect or POI at all. Simply because of the fact that, for all you know, you've got a COVID virus and you could quite easily pass it on to your suspect or POI. Not the best idea. At 59.59, Rick Allen says, I can't explain something that I don't understand. Hands held like this, again, non-deceptive. At 1 hour and 17, Holeman is going to fetch Kathy. Now, during this time, at 1:02, 1 hour and 2 seconds, I don't know whether anyone's noticed this, but Rick appears to be tapping his feet quite rhythmically. Now, in many cases, this is actually seen as a way to release anxiety. In most cases, it's actually considered a pretty good way of doing it, which suggests, and this has been explored before quite a few times, that Mr. Allen may be what's known as neurodivergent. It's a simple, fair enough assessment. At 1 hour and 6 minutes, 0.20, Mr. Holeman's phone, the mobile phone just sat behind the coffee cup, goes off, starts ringing. You never, ever leave your mobile phone, or indeed any personal property, within close proximity of your person of interest or suspect. Ever. I've had to reprimand 2 other officers on this one, because they made exactly the same mistake. Next thing they know, their phones went walkies. Mr. Allen, however, decided to ignore this particular fact. Good on you. At 1 hour 12 minutes, 0.35, when Holeman has returned to the room, Rick Allen asks, what kind of a good person would go out there and kill 2 innocent little girls? That's a pretty fair enough question, isn't it? You know, and this is in response to Mr. Holeman saying, I believe that you're a good person. Well, if that's the case, then what kind of good person does that? Nobody. Not if you're decent enough. Okay? It's really quite simple. At 1 hour, 12 minutes and 47 seconds, Mr. Allen does again another non-deceptive gesture, quite repeatedly. As in, look, what else do you want? I don't know what you're on about. I don't understand. Non-deceptive. At 1 hour, 14 minutes, 29 seconds, Mr. Allen also reiterates, I was in no way, shape or form involved in this crime. Again, non-deceptive. At 1 hour and 15 minutes and 50 seconds, Holeman is texting on his mobile to someone. You don't do that. Not ever. You don't do it. Because if you do that when you're trying to conduct an interview or interrogation, it clearly says one thing. You are not paying your full attention to the job at hand. It's very unprofessional, and it's not recommended by any means. If I caught anybody else doing that, I'd have them upon gross misconduct charges. Now, at 1 hour 16 minutes, Holeman leaves the room. I think he went to fetch Kathy at this point, because I think he's starting to get a little bit irritated. He's already said, oh, we'll drag your wife in here and, you can explain to her. Why are you even getting Mrs. Allen involved? Yeah, she's the wife of the suspect. She's the wife of the person of interest. But in all honesty, No. You leave her alone. Okay? You leave her alone. Right. I've had to leave it here at this point at 1 hour, 17 minutes and 4 seconds. Because I had other things to do today. I would like you all to go back and look at the video again. And I would like you all to think, what if that was you sat in that seat that Mr. Allen sat in? What if it was you? You've just been basically accused of a crime you did not commit. You've had your house searched. Your reputation in tatters. And to top it all, you're dragged into an interview room under false pretenses, where the interviewing or investigative officer is not writing anything down. In fact, he seems almost blasé about the whole matter. No. Something very wrong is going on there. I would like to all of you to think about that, if you will. Now, I am planning to do something rather special for my final part. So that will take me a good week or so to set up. Okay? And I'll let out more details as I go. But until then, I would like to wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas. And have a good one. Please take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Have a good one all. Take care.